And next, I'm joined by Shawn Wallace, CEO and Chair of Torq Resources, discovery stage copper gold explorer in Chile, backed by a $48 million earn-in from Goldfields. I know that porphyry exploration is not for the faint of heart. So when you can tap into capital like this and non-dilutive capital like this on a project, I think it's just kind of the holy grail for an exploration co. So I'll let that partner speak for itself and get Shawn to walk through the deck. Shawn, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Arlen. Thanks a lot for having me today.
Yeah, right on. Why don't you fire through?
Thanks to everybody who has taken the time out today to hear this and all the other stories that Arlen's providing. I got the pleasure today of talking about Torq Resources, and as Arlen mentioned, it's a project that has a big gold, copper, porphyry potential. It's located in Chile, and it is surrounded by other massive gold copper deposits and a joint venture with two of the majors. I like to preface this whole talk by talking about really how important that is and what it means for us to be a junior mining company. You know, Torque's a junior mining company. Our place on the food chain is to take an asset that we believe has big potential like this, drill it. Most important thing that we do, the most important activity we do is drilling. That's how we create the value. That's how we entice a major mining company to buy us. That's our exit. I've done this for a long time, worked on all these projects, and sometimes you get cornered in this, the project's not selling, and you start talking about going into production. And you really got to There's not a lot of credibility in a junior miner saying something like that. These projects move the needle in a very major way for the major mining companies, and that is what you want. Um, they're less risky in terms of discovery, because once you hook onto one of these big things, it's very quickly you can add up lots of ounces of gold, millions of ounces of gold, billions of pounds of copper, and then it just comes down to an economic assessment, and that's really where the rubber hits the road and where the major makes their decision. So we've got one of these tigers by the tail, and I'm going to go through it with you now. But so our place on the food chain: find it, add the value, sell it. We've just found it. We're just in a couple of drill programs. There hasn't been a truly meaningful drill program on this project yet. And as Arlen mentioned, it's going to be fueled by about 41 million US dollars left on the spend with Goldfields. But I'll get into the details here. And here we are, right on schedule. The Norte Abierto project, which is comprised primarily of the Caspiche project, which was another project that was discovered and advanced to sort of a feasibility level by another junior, and they resulted in a big takeover. And the Santa Cecilia deposit, again, junior mining company, found it, got taken over by a major. Now the two majors have come together, put it into a joint venture. That's not unheard of, particularly in big sort of elephant belts like this, where you have big deposits. This is at between 3,500 meters and 4,000 meters. So we're at altitude. So the CapEx isn't small. That's why it's a project for the biggest of the big. And often they come together in a consortium. We're fortunate enough to have a partner in Goldfields. Right after we acquired the project, they came to us immediately and said they wanted to get in. They started off our relationship by purchasing 15% of the company for about a 60% premium for the share price at the time. And then we fell on tougher days. And in order to finance this project, and I think I don't have to belabor the point because we have better days happening right now, but during that period of time where junior mining wasn't appreciated and companies struggled, we ended up doing a earn-in with Goldfields. So now they're spending 48 million US to earn a 75% interest in the project. We're going to retain a 25% interest in the project. They've earned about 10% of their 75% thus far. We were to have a drill program this year. Might as well get this out of the way right away. Unfortunately, we had a fatality at site. It was very unfortunate. It cost us our drill season because it was a young person, but it was a natural death. So there was a big investigation what happened, and it turned out to be a natural death, which is fine. It's tragic. It's horrible. We feel for the family, but it had nothing to do with the project or the operation or the safety protocols or anything of that sort. So we live to fight another day, and we're going to, with our partner, we're getting our plans together for this fall to be drilling. Now, a little bit more about the project. It's a big project. We've made about 3 or 4 discoveries on it so far. When we acquired the project, there was one discovery at Cerro de Medio, and since then we've found the Picas Norte and the Gemelas Norte targets. There are other targets that we got drill holes into, but where we really see deposits starting to form are at these three, and that's only so far. Picas Norte and Gemelos are right beside Caspiche. I'm talking less than a kilometer away. So, you know, that's a significant deposit. These claim boundaries are not made by the universe, or they're man-made. So we know for a fact that these are all these deposits are part of the same big geological event. So that's great to have. It's helped us tremendously in doing our exploration to have this data at hand. So theme so far, big project, what the majors want. We're surrounded by majors. We're partnering with majors, and we barely touched the thing. I think we've laid the sort of the stage for some exciting days ahead. Importantly, forget us guys on the left, except for Waldo. What's really important here is, if you're going to own a hockey team, who's your Wayne Gretzky's or who's your Mario Lemieux? And that's Waldo and Javier and Piotr and the rest of their team. These people have forgotten more about mining in Chile than most people will ever know. And they've just fantastic resumes. I won't read them over for you, but I mean, it's, they've been fundamental to us in being able to acquire the assets, get the social license, and move the projects forward. And even, to be fair, to navigate challenges like we had this year, it's just been handled so professionally and so perfectly. So you got a good team behind here, and I can't wait to unleash them with the drill results. A little bit more is on this slide. You can see Caspiche and Cerro Cecilia down at the bottom. Within and so Norte Aviator, you see the sort of stuff in like a light green on the screen. That is sort of what encompasses all the grounds. So you can see that we're literally surrounded by it. That's all the ground that they needed for the engineering and et cetera, et cetera. They really measured these deposits, and so it was fantastic. We just fit right into the middle of it. You can see a district type play coming together here. Between all these little deposits, the Luciano cluster, Cerro Cecilia, Caspiche, Roma, I think we're looking at about 75 million ounces of gold already discovered. So it's significant. This is the kind of thing that really moves the needle. And now in a $5,000 gold, I can't imagine that the majors aren't jumping up and down to try and get this thing going here. So, a picture's worth 1,000 words. I can tell you how close it is. We can show you little cartoons and so forth. But this picture, I love this picture because you can see with the pink or purple stars, depending on how it shows up on your screen, we've got, just a direct line. You can see the gentle topography. This is fantastic. No trees, therefore no environmental hurdles to get over. This is mining country, and it's really fantastic. Also, you can see the proximity to Caspiche, and it's almost impossible to think that these things won't be developed in some sort of consorted way down the road. Again, a little bit more zoomed in on some of the targets. You can look at, when we acquired the project, it was based on Cerro de Medio, and there was a 900 and some meter hole with about 0.4 gold and 0.17 or 8 copper, and it's just it's just you have to pay attention to that. So we knew immediately we wanted to acquire it. We went into a phase 1 drill program, stepped out 700 meters from that. 700 meters. A lot of ounces will be in between 700 meters. And the beautiful thing about porphyries is, you kind of it can get pretty predictable what's going to happen as you go in the direction towards the heat source, toward where the metals were injected up from the earth and deposited closer to surface as it is here. So we ended up with a 557 meters of 0.38 gold and 0.23 copper. That was about a 60% increase in the gold. It's fantastic. So we know just keep going there, keep drilling. There's no doubt we're going to find tens of millions of ounces of gold here. So what are we doing? Well, we're trying to find where the economic center of gravity is. That was the entire thrust behind our exploration activities right now. And once we do that, look out. And we know there's going to be an economic center of gravity somewhere, and it will be the quality of such that will dictate how much of all this other stuff that we've already drilled makes it into a pit, into a resource calculation, into the ultimate valuation. We've had a phase 2. There we wanted to go exploring, and at these times you got to remember we were in the depths of those terrible markets. Capital was dear. Capital is always here, but it was particularly so at that time. And so we were able to just go drill 2 or 3 holes here and there. And we decided that we were going to explore rather than just posting up on Cerro de Medio and trying to infill something. We knew we needed to make some new discoveries. And lo and behold, every time we've gone out with the drill here, we have made a new discovery. So we at Pircas Norte sort of emerged out of the phase 2. And then last year, the first drill program with our joint venture partner, Goldfields, we made a new discovery at Amelis Norte. And again, 650 meters of 0.42 copper, 0.42 gold and 1.13 copper. This stuff starts to add up. And again, not the causative intrusion. We need to go in and systematically grid drill these discoveries to find, the ultimate nature of the deposits. So we got 3 of them so far, and we're almost certain we're going to find some more as soon as we're able to continue drilling, should things remain equal. Again, this is just another blow up, a little bit more data about the drilling. Again, really what I want to point out about the drilling is just how consistent, how pervasive. These are big swaths of mineralization. This is what you want to see. A little bit of section work on it. And you can see that we've been able to trace through mapping a lot of this. So when you look at the drill results, sometimes, again, we're going for the most coverage per drill hole per meter, and you drill on these angles and so forth. And that we're able to extrapolate some of that to surface. So when you see drill results reported, you see, oh, well, that's at 266 meters, but we know mineralized porphyry exists above it. We also know it goes right to surface because we've sampled it there, and it's the same rock type. So we'll look forward to being able to outline a close to surface pit in the future as we drill going forward. Again, this is a little bit more geological stuff than most people want to sit through. This is available on our website for anybody who wants to really spend some time looking at it. But again, just conceptually to share the basic concept with you. And these things, alteration, the rocks get altered when they're being deposited, and that's what we're using as a sort of a pathfinder to the heat source. And again, we're very fortunate to have an analog next door again with the other deposits. I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly because it's just sort of the same thing. Here, this reiterates and sort of shows you the scale of this thing. So that between those 2 drill stems that you're seeing on the thing is 1,200 meters. It's 700 meters rather. So you can imagine how much metal is going to be contained with 1,000-meter deep. You just start to put some dimensions on it. It's incredible how quickly it can go up. I know when I worked on the Pebble deposit in Alaska, Mount Milligan and Kemess, they all evolved this exact same way. And these are just early days. And if you look at Caspice, you look how as they drilled towards the heat source, very similar grades as we're getting. And then boom, when they got to the intrusion, that's where you get your 1,200 meters of 0.9 gold, 0.33 copper. And at that point, that's when you start talking about your project, your exploration project, as that's going to be a mine someday, because you're not going to drill that at 5,000 gold, $6 copper, and have it become a mine someday. Very exciting. Again, this is just more of a theme. So the key takeaways here: there's about $41 million actually left to be spent as part of the drilling as the JV. So far, we have 3 distinct porphyry discoveries. We've only drilled 10 holes. And the next phase of drilling for the joint venture is being planned for late summer, early autumn is probably more accurate. And, we really look forward to it. It's an exciting time. The company is in good shape. We've also had some submissions. So, really Goldfields is fully funding this thing. We've got our burn rate down, so we don't have to raise all sorts of money, continue to dilute shareholders. We're taking our dilution on the chin in terms of project interest, and so it doesn't behoove us to go and dilute the company unnecessarily before we can create some value with that particular relationship on this particular asset. However, don't be surprised if we find an accretive way to put another asset into the company and to generate some other excitement, something that we can drive ourselves in sort of harmony with what's happening at Santa Cecilia. So Arlen, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them now.
Yeah. I got a question. These causative intrusions, like how does a good geologist vector in on a causative intrusion? What are what are you looking at the core?
We're looking for, in this case, potassic alteration. So there's the potassium in the rock, it increases, it's more associated with the high, and it dissipates as it gets further away from that heat source, right? And when it deposits that. There's other things you can tell with the gold and copper grade. And I'm quickly going to get over my skis here with this, but I've worked on an awful lot of them, in fact, and there's even the untrained eye, even though I can't articulate it as well as a geologist would, I can, with my eyes, I can tell you if you're close to a heat source or not on some of these deposits. Once you get enough drill data, and again, one of the distinct advantages about this particular project being in a belt, where it's, if you look again, the picture that was on the screen right now, Caspiche is 1.7 kilometers between that project at fully feasibility. So we have the benefit. The rocks over here aren't going to look any different than the rocks over there. It's just a matter of where's the grade. That's it.
Do you really need that causative intrusion here? Like if like, let's be honest, your elephants beside you, your gorillas beside you, they're going to be the ones that ultimately decide how this district gets developed. Unless you can tell me that Goldfields is going to put all that capital in, right? Like multi-billion-dollar capex.
Again, that's why I kind of mentioned consortiums at the start. I think part of what attracted Goldfields to this, and again, I can't speak for them, but I think I've got a good sense of what they're about, having worked with them for a few years here now. They would like to be the third major in the consortium that's already formed. I mean, at least if I were them, I would be. It's a brilliant strategy. They can come in, they'll be able to bring in this project, and for 48 million, they get 75%, then say they take us out for some amount of money, because they're not going to let us, if we start finding causative intrusions, stuff going on, I don't imagine Torq's going to be around for very long in that.
Well, it was Exeter. That was the junior that drilled your next door neighbor project. And I think that thing hit $17 a share in the last exploration project. I think it got bought out for 3 or 4 in the end. So some stumbling and fumbling, but clearly a very, very mineralized district that needs to be explored. And
and BEMA, or one of the iterations of BEMA, was what got taken out for the Santa Cecilia as well.
Yeah, percent.
And people still remember those people. Some people still haven't spent all the money they made on something. Right.
Yeah. All right, Shawn, we gotta sign off here. Great job. Excellent. Good luck on that. I'm sure people will look forward to when you start turning the rigs again.
Great. Yeah. TorqResources.com if anyone wants to spend their time looking over this in more detail for the stuff I glossed over. And of course, we're always available to discuss things with anyone who's interested in our company. So thank you very much, Arlen. And
thanks, Shawn.